Hey, Charles Szczepanek here with another practicing quick tip for you. This is a technical tip and it can easily apply from a mid-intermediate rep all the way through to the most advanced rep ever written. So there are times throughout all this repertoire that we're asked to make quick leaps, quick lateral leaps back and forth with one hand or with both hands, sometimes same direction, sometimes opposite directions, sometimes single notes, sometimes octaves to chords, octaves to octaves. There are a lot of variables, but the underlying technique here is very similar from one example to the next. And the idea that we're going to talk about today is that we want to use the first of our hand positions, whether we're leaping from an upper position down or from a lower position up. The first position before the leap, we're going to use that as a spring to spring off of the keys and generate momentum in the right direction, and then land on the other side of our leap in the right place on the right keys. That's the general gist, and we're going to dive into a few more important tidbits that I'm going to share with you as we go through an example. So let's take a look at a few bars that the leaps make these bars very difficult to achieve at tempo. All right, so this page of music has leaps all over the place, but we're in particular going to dial in to measure 112. We're going to talk basically about this bit, and we're going to first actually talk about the leap out of 112 and into 113. So right here, and then that one with the left hand. This one on the top doesn't look super large, but look, this is going to an octave higher. So we're playing from this E flat up to some of the highest notes on the piano. Likewise, in the left hand, going down, we have a leap of an octave, almost 2 octaves. So these are large leaps, and the tempo is also pretty quick here. It's, let's see, something like that. Okay, so how are we going to use today's tip to help out here? First, we've just identified the leaps. That's always the first thing we're going to do. Let's take a look at the right hand now, right hand first. We have this, we know that this note is going to be the front side of our leap. It's the note we're going to leave, and it's the note we're going to experience the spring off, right? It's going to spring from here, and then I'm going to land on this note. Now I'd like to talk through a handful of components of this springing gesture. So first of all, we want to feel the release of the key, right? Just make sure that we can feel that, and feel that the fingers are actually kind of launching us off the key. Almost like we're playing a bit of a staccato, but we're not engaging staccato as the attack on the way in, but we're leaving kind of with a staccato-like articulation, okay? So feeling this spring off. Notice my hand can be resting on the keys and then spring off, yes? Okay, that's the first bit. Second bit, as we spring off, we also want to create momentum. Use the spring to create momentum in the correct direction. If we simply spring off, like I just showed you, we're creating momentum straight up in the air. That's not going to really help us with a leap. It's getting us out of the keys and out of the way. That's kind of nice, I guess. But what we really want to do is use that same principle, this spring off, but have it launch us in the direction we need to go. So now I'm springing off and up in the direction of the next note that I need to play after this leap, right? Okay, so there's two things, and they're really getting melded together into one motion, right? Third component, after we've sprung off, we have a distance that we need to travel, a lateral distance, right? So we have a spring, the generation of momentum, and now a lateral travel. Once again, these things are all related. We're just breaking them up into a couple different segments so you can really understand everything that's going on in the process. Number 4, during this lateral motion, we want to be sure and try and start to form or have in mind the hand shape that we're going to need when we reach the end of the leap, when we reach the next notes we need to play. Sometimes this can take the shape of a lot of different things, and it depends on even the particular thing you're practicing. There are a lot of times we might practice leaps. This could be in a different video. There are a lot of times we could practice leaps from thumb to thumb, right? And in that case, we're not creating a hand shape, we're simply playing and aiming for one finger. We could play from 5 to 5. 5 to 5, yeah? Or we can aim for the entire chord that we need here. Whether we actually, in midair, we start to form this chord, that might be a nice basic way of starting this off as you're practicing slowly. Eventually, we want to have that chord shape as purely a mental idea that we know we can be here and we can expand on the way down into the chord. We can expand right into that shape on the way down, right? Okay, and then finally, if you call it number 5, it's the actual playing of the other side of the leap, the next notes. So there are 5 components there, right, that we think about individually. But what's really, really important is that this all feels like one gesture, one motion from the onset, from the first spring, through the generation of momentum, through the lateral motion, through the thinking about the hand shape, into playing it. So no matter how slowly we need to take something, especially at the beginning of learning, we take the tempo way down, but we still feel this as one movement. Yeah? What we want to very much, highly, highly avoid is what I'm about to show you next. Don't do this. Don't play, shift, place, play again. We don't want to ever do that. Even when we're learning, if possible, if we can possibly get away from that and say, no more checking, right? As soon as possible, we're not going to hover and play, because if we do that instead, and if we practice that, look what we're doing. We're playing down, we're releasing up, then we're creating a lateral movement, then we're pausing, and then we're playing again. I could count all of those as around 4 things that we're asking our hand to actually execute. And they're all separate. What we want to do is eliminate every possible thing that we could think about to make one gesture, one thing that we do that leads us across the leap. And it's all initiated by the sense of spring off. In fact, the first 3 components of everything we talked about, of those 5, of the spring, the release, the generation of momentum, the traveling through the air, those 3 things, all easily we can feel that in one motion. Adding the next 2, the hand shape and the playing, to the end of this single motion, that's a little bit more difficult. But we want to attempt to do that too, as quickly as possible in our practice. So here's one example we identified in the right hand. This is where the leap is happening. This is why it's difficult. Here's where I'm going to use this. I can practice this simply from the E that we're leaving off of at the end of 112 to the upper note, right? All in one motion every time. Even if we go slower, one motion. Okay, we could do the same thing with the left hand. The left hand here, same notes. We have a spring off in the in the opposite direction though, right? So, and then we're going to land on this low G. So we have spring off, land, spring off, land. Same 5 concepts, right? The left hand, I'd say, is a little bit more difficult because we're moving in and out of the keyboard here. So that adds another layer of difficulty. Also, when we need to play hands together here, they're moving in opposite motion, which always makes one of these leaps blind. I can only watch one. I can only see one. Most of the time in these cases, because of this lateral in and out movement, I'm going to be watching the left hand here, right? But all the time when I'm practicing, even if I'm doing both hands, spring off, generate that momentum, land on the next chord, land in the next hand position, right? We could also take this kind of example and practice a little bit earlier. We could practice just the last 3 notes. Ooh. Right? And feel the spring where it needs to happen. In the right hand, in this particular passage, the right hand gets a little bonus because we're already moving in the right direction for the spring off and the generation of momentum. The left hand needs to change direction, right on where the thumb would play there. And of course, you can continue practicing this and using this tip and speed up your tempo and continue to speed it up until you reach performance tempo. Okay, but all the time through even the beginning of the bar, we have a leap, back down. Always feeling this one generation of momentum, no placing, moving, placing again, releasing. That will always lead us to not being able to achieve performance tempo and possibly even adding tension to our playing because we're gripping and trying to hold on. We're trying to hold on instead of letting go. The piece that I've used to demonstrate today is my own arrangement of Elgar's Nimrod from his Enigma variations. If you're interested in the arrangement, I'll leave some links below to the sheet music when it's available, and also the performance when it comes out. And I chose to use this piece in today's video because it's a piece that I've been practicing up to record recently, and so it had a lot of leaping passages that I've been working on recently, and I wanted to share this quick tip that I have found super helpful in my own practice. Wanted to share it with you today. Speaking of leaps, many times leaps involve octaves, and I have a great video with 5 fantastic tips to improve your octave playing, so be sure and check that out. It's on the screen now. You've been watching Pianist Academy, where we practice smarter, not harder. I'll see you in the next video.